This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
What's up, Detroit sports fans? Welcome to the Fan Reporter Show, made by fans for fans, powered by the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I'm Nick, and today I'm joined by our boy Anderson, who's going to give us this week's topics.
This week, we react to a surprising decision made in the linebacker core for the Lions. We also try to assess the Lions, where the Lions stand offensively in the NFL. Maybe we can fit some movie talk in. I don't know. It's the Fan Report.
All right. So, well, kind of our usuals today. Even though it is quarantine, the football world still continues on. Basketball and hockey worlds have basically been put on hold outside of a couple of things here and there. We have gotten spoiled by ESPN's production, The Last Dance, over the last couple of weeks, and that'll continue.
That's been beautiful. Been raising some weird controversies in the city again, but
right. I wanted to actually kind of ask you. I wanted to kind of ask you about something, kind of your thoughts here, and this is kind of going. Yeah. Get your tinfoil hats ready, ladies and gentlemen. But sports conspiracy theory route. Obviously, we're getting into the part of The Last Dance where we have to talk about Michael Jordan stepping away from the game of basketball.
We're approaching that. Well, yeah, kind of, yeah.
And
I think they're going to go over it.
And obviously, there's several different theories as to why he stepped away. Some people believe it at face value that he just wanted to play baseball. He played baseball as a kid. It's what his father always wanted him to do. Some people believe that the NBA wanted him to leave because it was hurting the league that he was always winning, and they wanted him to step away so that other teams could essentially have a chance to win an NBA title. And then there's the other theory that I believe that he was essentially suspended, but not suspended by the NBA for his gambling issues. That there was rumblings going around that he had a major issue and was involved with some very bad people, and when it came to gambling, and either owed money or whatever. But I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on, just because we're getting to the point where he is going to step away from the game in The Last Dance, and how they're going to handle it. Obviously, if the way they're going to handle it is he just stepped away to go play baseball.
Magic Jordan just comes out and admits it, though.
That he had gambling problems?
This was actually, no one knows this, but this is actually a secret suspension.
But what do you believe? What are your thoughts on it? Because I personally believe he was told to leave the game because of the gambling issues.
I buy it 100% because it's a bad look for the league it would have been at the time a bad look for the league to suspend their star player. They're literally the face of their league, of the NBA. And I honestly think a deal was struck so it could look cleaner, at least on Jordan's end, because it makes no sense to me why in the middle of winning 6 championships, he splits that and goes and plays baseball. And people have said that it was because Jordan got bored of basketball, it became too ezy. I don't believe that.
And there is some kind of credibility to that, because you can argue that him being the ultra competitor that he was, because he was an absolute alpha male competitor, that the NBA did get too easy for him. You can make that argument, absolutely. I, however, don't believe that's true. I just don't see why. Someone who wins 3 wants to win 4. Someone who wins 4 wants to win 5 and continue on until you just can't do it anymore. The only reason...
The argument that I do like to entertain sometimes is that maybe he just wanted to be that Bo Jackson type, known as that 2-sport athlete, and see if he could do baseball.
Which, again, is going back to the argument that he is the ultra competitor and he wanted to be the ultimate athlete. He already conquered basketball. He not only, and you mentioned he was the face of the NBA, he not only was the face of the NBA, he was the face of the entire sport. He is still, by far, the most recognizable name in the sport of basketball worldwide in 2020.
Yeah.
Ask anybody who Michael Jordan is, fan or not, they'll tell you he's a basketball player, one of the greatest. He was a guy in Space Jam. He's a guy from the Air Jordan shoes. Everybody knows who Michael Jordan is. And the only guy who's ever come close to that status is LeBron James. That's it.
Yeah.
But everybody knows who Michael Jordan is.
You don't think Kobe got that kind of renowned status when he was at his peak?
Say it again?
You don't think Kobe that kind of got that world-renowned status when he was at his peak?
No, I don't. Not even close.
Everyone in China knew who Kobe was. I can tell you one of the
Kobe was far.
I knew in the Middle East knew who Kobe was.
Kobe was very worldly because of his worldly connections with his father, with him living in Italy and his father playing, I believe, played overseas. So Kobe had a lot more worldly connections and was a lot more world traveled than Michael Jordan was. So he was branching out further. But in terms of who the player was and how recognizable the name was, there's nobody that comes close to Michael Jordan. Kobe's up there. I still think he's a step below LeBron. In terms of name recognition, that's just name recognition. Obviously, most people, asking whoever it is in the streets anywhere are going to know who Kobe and LeBron are. But just about everybody's going to know who Michael Jordan is, unless you have lived under a rock for the last 40 years, basically.
Yeah.
But for the NBA to have a scandal like that, where not only the face of your organization, but the face of your entire sport is a chronic gambler and who so many people have looked up to as a role model in their sport, a role model as a person, and just a massive fan, and to have a scandal like that come out where this dude's really not all that great of a guy and is involved with some really shady people, including potentially, rumors out there, potentially the mob, involved with some gambling with the mob, that ain't a good look for Michael, for Michael Jordan, and for the league, and for the sport of basketball as well. And what could be argued as a really pivotal time for the sport of basketball. You lost. You're no longer in what is considered the golden age of the NBA in the 80s. You're starting to phase out from that, where you no longer have the Magic Johnsons at the peak, the Kareems at the peak, the Larry Birds at the peak. You no longer have those names. It's Michael and everybody else. Sure, there's the Charles Barkleys, the Akeem Olajuwons, the David Robinsons out there, the Isaiah Thomases towards the end. Nobody was as recognizable as Michael Jordan. So to have him disappear, it could really hurt the game of basketball. To have them take a scandal like that with Michael Jordan, it would have really hurt the game of basketball and the NBA in particular. So
I agree.
It was in everybody's best interest for Michael to step away from the game and go entertain himself elsewhere.
But my question to you is, does that conspiracy get brought up during The Last Dance?
I think it would be ballsy as hell if they did, because I really don't think that the Jordan family, especially Michael Jordan and the NBA, would agree to allowing it to be aired if it did. So that's where I'm
Jordan's
saying.
all over that documentary too. So
right. So that's where I'm saying I really don't think it would have, if they were to spin it that way. I really don't think they would even approach the subject. I think they're going to take it the route of, guy was an ultra competitor. He got bored with the NBA and wanted to be the greatest athlete in the history of sports by conquering another sport.
Yeah.
That's the route I think they're going to take it. But
and I think it'd be a smart move on Jordan's part to play it that way.
Well, obviously.
Yeah. All right. Want to take it to a second sport? That's not baseball, though?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So, Bleacher Report actually released a early power ranking of every NFL team's offense after the draft. They released this yesterday. And the Lions were, at least to me, ranked kind of surprisingly low. They were ranked at 20 overall in the NFL. That means Bleacher Report, the writer here, who is Alex Ballantyne, believes there's 19 other offenses in the NFL that are better than the Detroit Lions. And me personally, and this is not even me being a homer, I think the Lions are I'm not going to say your top 10, but borderline top 10 offensively. They didn't show it I'm saying on paper, but they didn't show it last season, especially after Stafford got hurt. But with Stafford healthy, and if Darrell Bubbles' game plan works as well as it did when Stafford was healthy last season, I think they are a top 10 offense on paper. But what do you? We're gonna read off some of the teams, but just initial reaction. Do you think that 20 ranking is a little too low for the Lions?
I can definitely see the argument for both sides of this. 20 being as low as it was because this team without its starting quarterback was 32nd in the league in offense. They were absolutely god awful. You throw the quarterback back in, it's an entirely different story. However, they also did lose quite a bit in the offseason, and primarily along the offensive line.
That is correct.
In all reality, didn't really add all that much along that offensive line in the offseason. They grabbed a couple of guys in the 3rd and 4th rounds in the interior, playing the guard positions, and then they signed a guy who was asked to fill in on the outside on both sides for Philly due to injury last season in Vitae. So it's a question on, did they bring in enough to ultimately improve the offensive line? And in all reality, they need to improve that offensive line because the offensive line last year was terrible. Agreed. So,
and I'm fingers crossed that the guys they drafted are very serviceable on that line. But
so the reason, and now mind you, we'll go through the comparisons to teams ahead of them, behind them in a second here. But the reasons that, in reading the article from Bleacher Report, they listed the negatives on the offense, primarily being that offensive line. And I won't disagree with it, because I'll be honest with you, I can't tell you that the offensive line is better coming into this season than it was last season. Rick Wagner was a guy that you paid a ton of money to be your every down right tackle. Was he good? Not really. Taylor Decker, his best season was his rookie year. How's he been since? We don't even know if he's going to be the long-term left tackle.
Yeah.
The only guy that I, honest to God, trust entirely on that offensive line right now is Frank Ragnow. That's it. I don't know anything about these two guys.
I'll agree with you.
I don't know anything about these two guys we drafted. I mean, I know enough to know that they've got, prospectability here, that we can look to plug them in and have them be effective. But are they going to be? No, they're unproven. And Vitae was a guy who was a backup swing tackle for the Philadelphia Eagles in his previous stop. And you're asking him to be your starting right tackle. Is that something that's an upgrade behind Rick Wagner? If he stays healthy, maybe. But I can't tell you that our offensive line is better going into this season. I liked Graham Glasgow a lot, and I think it was a big mistake to let him walk. I would have loved to see him play alongside Ragnow for another season. Then you focus on drafting your right guard and bringing in a right tackle. But they didn't go that route, and I think if you would have kept Graham Glasgow, things would look a little bit different along that offensive line. Now, looking at the other pieces, yes, they do have weapons. Kenny Golladay is a great wide receiver. He's very good. Not quite top 5, but probably near the back end of the top 10. Fair?
I'll agree with that.
Could he take a step up this year playing with Stafford? Absolutely. He's still young. He's effective. You have a question mark pretty much everywhere else, though. Marvin Jones in the final year of a contract at the age of 30. How effective is he going to be? Danny Amendola is 34. TJ Hawkinson
ain't getting any younger.
Exactly. TJ Hawkinson was, albeit a disappointment last year. What does he do? Does he take a step up?
You're going to be looking for him to definitely take a big step up. That's what you're going to be hoping.
And then you look at the backfield. You have you have 2 running backs that are entirely unproven. Entirely unproven. Kerryon Johnson had a solid rookie year. Got hurt. Sophomore season. Got hurt.
Yeah.
So we're looking at a guy who is yet to play a full 16-game season, and a rookie who looks like a really good running back and looks like he will fit in the system, but is entirely unproven. So we don't know if this running back tandem is going to work or not. So there's a lot of... And then you also have the big question mark on the health of Matthew Stafford going forward. He's 32 years old, coming off of what could have been his best season of his career if it weren't for the second straight year of a back injury, a spinal injury. What is his status going to be? Is he fully back?
And Chase Daniel to back him.
Right. You don't. I mean, I'd argue Chase Daniel is better than the options we had last season.
Oh, I'll agree. It's an upgrade, but I'd still, when you have a quarterback coming off the injury that Stafford was coming off of, I'd want a little more insurance behind him.
Could you imagine if the Lions went after Teddy Bridgewater and paid him?
Ooh.
Oh.
Totally different look to our offense.
Oh. I mean, dude, honest to God, if he didn't even play a single down, that's a good sign. However, if he had to, it's at least someone I can trust.
Yeah.
So, but the offense for me is big question mark. And that's where I feel like they are putting... That's where, like, on paper, there's a lot of good things to look at in terms of the weapons. But when it comes to the trenches, things don't look very good for the Lions. And everybody who knows football knows that you win and lose in the trenches and that you gain, your offense's rides on that offensive line. And if it's not a successful offensive line, your offense will not be successful. You can't run the ball and your quarterback does not have time to throw the ball. And they did not upgrade that offensive line in the offseason. If anything, they downgraded.
Yeah.
So that's where I can see the argument of putting them at 20. However, I don't know. I'll have to compare them to the teams I have.
So it sounds like you agree with that on paper right now, just at face value.
The weapons they have are better than 20, but everything put together, maybe not.
Well, let's see. So number 19, they have the Los Angeles Chargers. Now who is their quarterback now? Tyrod Taylor?
Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah. Or unless they're going to start Justin Herbert.
I highly doubt that'll happen.
But they still have Keenan Allen. They still have Mike Williams, which is a great receiving duo, if you ask me.
Absolutely.
And they let Melvin Gordon go, but Austin Eckler was fantastic last season.
He was.
So I'm not too worried about that backfield. But again, the big question mark is at quarterback for them.
I'll be honest with you. Tyrod Taylor's never been a guy to ever sink a team. He's never been that bad. He's never been bad, really. He's been a good quarterback most of his career, a solid quarterback, a guy you can rely on. Is he as good as Matthew Stafford? No. Is he a guy that's going to win you 12, 13 games? No. Is he a guy that's going to win you a Super Bowl? Probably not. But he is a guy who can get you 9, 10, 11 wins. 11's on the high side, but 9 or 10 wins, that's not that unheard of for him, especially considering this is probably the best weapons group he's ever played with.
True.
Let's call it what it is. The Bills' weapons were terrible when he was there. Terrible. Who do they have?
So you do think he'd be able to utilize Keenan Allen and Mike Williams the way that Phillip Rivers was able to?
How hard is it to utilize a wide receiver that runs 3-yard routes and runs the rest of the way himself? That's Keenan Allen. And frankly, I think Tyrod Taylor is perfect for a guy like that. Because you can roll out Tyrod Taylor and Keenan Allen in type of a bubble screen type or an out route or an in route or whatever, and he's your outlet, and bada boom, bada bing, Keenan Allen runs for 40 yards after the catch. It's a threat. What it is it's a speed threat from every weapons position on the football field, and that's something that's scary and underrated. Look at the Ravens last year. Now, they were obviously a true big threat, like big home run hitting threat at running back away from doing this, but Lamar Jackson can hit a home run with his legs and his arm anytime. Marquise Goodwin, big time speed burner outside. Big time, and we saw flashes of it for sure. Mark Ingram, albeit not a burner, but effective at the running back position. Could you imagine if they had a truly speedy back or an Austin? Let's throw Austin Eckler in that backfield. How dangerous is that offense at that point? Yeah, that's what the Chargers are trying to look at here. Granted, Tyrod Taylor's not Lamar Jackson. He's not.
Nope.
But he's still solid, and he's a guy you can rely on. I can't.
So you don't think Tyrod Taylor at any point loses his starting job to Justin Herbert this season?
No, I don't. I don't think he's bad enough to, and I don't think Justin Herbert's ready. I will say this. I don't think Tyrod Taylor can be as bad as Phillip Rivers was last season. Phillip Rivers last season was not good, and I think Tyrod Taylor is an upgrade from that version of Phillip Rivers that we saw last year. Phillip Rivers overall is a better quarterback, but not last season. I don't think
he'll be better than Phillip Rivers 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, or 4 years ago.
No,
going back.
Phillip Rivers is the better quarterback.
Yeah,
but last season he was terrible. I think Tyrod Taylor can be
6th overall pick as a result.
Right, but I think Tyrod Taylor can be better than that.
Yeah. All right. Next team they have, this is the first one I actually do not agree with, is the Las Vegas Raiders. This is a team with Derek Carr still at the helm. They did draft Henry Ruggs, who was my favorite receiver in this draft. But we'll see how, again, just like we were saying, DeAndre Swift is unproven. We gotta also give it up that Henry Ruggs is unproven.
Right.
But other than that, obviously Josh Jacobs was fantastic last season. They had a huge surprise at tight end with Darren Waller last season, who was also fantastic. But outside of those two, I can't really grab many positives out of this offense.
I'm gonna disagree with you. I think while albeit this is based more on speculation on what's to come and an expectation that Derek Carr can be better, I actually think this offense is something that could be pretty good. Sure, they weren't very good at putting points on the board, but they were a top 10 offense in yards per play and a top 10 offense in DVOA. Which tells me right now that this offense can move the football, and their weapon, and they just needed one or two more weapons to put the ball in the end zone. Josh Jacobs in his second year can arguably take a big step up, even though he was very good last year. He can be even more effective. Darren Waller was a huge surprise for the Raiders last year, and he was the only weapon they had. Could you imagine if he had someone out wide who could be a threat to force the defense away from him in the red zone? And now enter Henry Ruggs. Boom, found your guy. This offense actually could be a good offense. However, it's going to big time rely on the arm of Derek Carr. Are we going to see Derek Carr that made the Pro Bowl a few years back, or probably several years back? I believe he made the Pro Bowl that year. Wasn't there a year you made the Pro Bowl?
Derek Carr?
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest, it's not saying much if you make the Pro Bowl nowadays, but let's find out.
No, it's not. But he still had a very good year that year.
Yeah, let's see. So Derek Carr is a 3-time Pro Bowler from 2015 to 2017.
All right. Are we getting Pro Bowl Derek Carr? Or are we getting Derek Carr after that? I didn't know he made it 3 times. Thought it was just one. He was better than I thought. But are we getting Derek Carr from early in his career or later in his career? Because you tell me right now that you give him a couple, another weapon. You have Darren Waller. Josh Jacobs is another step forward. You're looking at an offense that could actually be dangerous. And John Gruden is a guy who does get the most out of his quarterbacks a lot. I mean, dude won a Super Bowl with Brad Johnson. Granted, he had one of the greatest defenses in the history of football, but still. That says something. So let's see what he can get out of Derek Carr in their second season together. I'm actually curious, because this entirely is one that has one of the biggest question marks for me, and it's because of the fact that it's purely based on speculation and improved expectations. Because of what we saw last year. So does Darren Waller continue to put up what he did last year? Does Josh Jacobs improve and continue to put up and be better than he was last year? And then does Henry Ruggs succeed? There's a lot of question marks there, but I like the makeup of that offense. And frankly, I trust the play calling a little bit there too. They're one that is, they're still short on weapons. However, we'll see what happens.
All right, number 17 is the Atlanta Falcons, which I don't think either of us are going to really disagree with on that one.
Depends who's calling the plays.
True.
And actually, I am going to disagree with this one. I don't think the Falcons' offense is better than the Lions anymore.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think they're one.
Todd Gurley manages to stay healthy?
What?
Even if Todd Gurley manages to stay healthy?
When's the last time he was healthy? I forgot he went to the Falcons, but frankly, yes, because I don't know that they're going to utilize Todd Gurley as much. I think you're going to look at more of a Devontae Freeman, Tevin Coleman type split with Todd Gurley, and I think that's a smarter route to take it. So I don't think you're going to see the Todd Gurley in that we saw in the Rams uniform where he's running the ball 25 times a game. I think we see Todd Gurley run 10 to 15 times a game. That team is still.
I think Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley receiving duo, I think is still one of the best receiving duos out there.
It's good, very good. It's better. It's better than most, but again, Matt Ryan is no spring chicken. He's getting older. Julio Jones has still an inability to stay healthy, and Julio Jones also, for some reason, has a problem finding the end zone every now and then. He just has long stretches of times where he can't sniff the end zone. And I don't know. I don't trust this offense enough to say that they are better than the Lions offense. I don't. Not anymore. I've seen this offense disappoint far too many times for me to really believe in them as much as I used to. Were they good a couple of years ago? Hell yeah, they were. Any more, though?
They picked it up last year, too. They started off a little slow, but they picked it up.
What did they finish last year on offense?
I can look at their actual ranking. Let's see.
And you're also asking a guy in Todd Gurley to stay healthy to be a focal point of your offense. That's a big yikes.
Yeah.
That's that's a big risk. Because if he goes down,
I don't think they're going to be asking to be a focal point, to be honest with you.
Well, either way, if he goes down,
the running game has never been the focal point.
No, and that's why I don't think Todd Gurley's going to make that big of an impact. But if he goes down, the guys behind him are Brian Hill and Ito Smith. You ain't turning any heads that way. What?
So they were no, I said yeesh. So they were 5th in yards per game.
Okay.
Total yards per game. That is passing yards per game. They were 3rd. Rushing yards per game. They were probably towards the bottom.
Probably. Mind you, they did also lose Austin Hooper.
Yeah, but they brought in Hayden Hurst, who I think is a very good tight end. I think he just obviously got outshined by Mark Andrews in Baltimore. But
yeah, he is yet to prove it. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But I don't know. The passing game, I think, will still be pretty solid. I don't know that I trust the running game just yet. And I don't know. This offense seems to let me down more often than not.
All right, let's keep it moving here. We got to move a little faster. Number 16, Buffalo Bills. I think they're putting a lot of weight on them getting Stephon Diggs because this was not a good offense last year.
I'm going to disagree with this one entirely. And the reason is because I don't think Josh Allen is that great of a quarterback. I think he's a fantastic running quarterback, and I think he's a good leader. But I don't think he's a guy who can put it into tight windows. I think he's a guy who can throw the hell out of the ball, but he's going to overthrow his receivers by 20 yards. Now, mind you, if there's a receiver that's hard to overthrow, Stephon Diggs is a good one to have. However, I don't know that I entirely believe in the accuracy of a guy like Josh Allen. He's tough as nails. He's big, he's tough, and he can throw the hell out of the ball, but I don't know that he's able to be the guy I can ride my way to being one of the premier offenses of the league. I disagree with this one. Plus, running back wise, I mean, the guy the running backs were, they had LaShawn McCoy. No, Shady was on KC last year.
Devin
Singletary, and he was pretty much,
who I love.
However, he was pretty much unproven and actually quite ineffective in certain spots as well. He was very up and down last year, if I remember right. Because I remember him at one point because in the season, he averaged 5.1 yards per carry, but I think there was a stretch he averaged below 4, if I remember right, and then he got hurt.
I know he got hurt. I don't remember him averaging below 4, though.
I don't know. I felt like there was a point in time where he was real hit or miss. But you do bring Zach Moss into this backfield to replace Frank Gore, which is nice. I actually am pretty high on Zach Moss. I think he could be a good player. I just don't know that I entirely believe in this offense as a whole. I don't think that they have the talent entirely to put it together.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's keep moving here. Now, this one I could really see both sides of. This could go either way. The Indianapolis Colts. Now, this is a team that just got Phillip Rivers at quarterback. They added to their running back core by grabbing Jonathan Taylor to pair with Marlon Mack. But there's a lot of questions here because obviously Phillip Rivers, which one are you going to get? Are you going to get the Phillip Rivers from last year? Or if you get the Phillip Rivers from 2 years ago, this is easily one of the best defenses because you got Phillip Rivers over T.Y. Hilton. I think you have 2 fantastic running backs in the backfield. And their offensive line is fantastic. So I would really like this offense. But again, there's a big question mark right at the very important position.
This is the best offensive line Phillip Rivers ever played with or played behind. I think it's going to be something that is going to resurge Phillip Rivers' career. Last year, the Chargers' O-line was not very good in pass protection. This O-line is very, very, very good. Adding Jonathan Taylor to Marlon Mack has actually caused quite a bit of uproar and rumors to fly around that they could be looking to trade Marlon Mack. I've heard that rumor swirling a lot as of late. And it's one I think would be a mistake because I think Marlon Mack is a very good running back, and it'd be a big loss. Granted, he does have trouble staying healthy at times, but that's where you enter Jonathan Taylor. Now, the receiving core is good. It is good. I'm not going to call it great yet, but it is good.
Yeah, they did draft Michael Pittman in the second round. T.Y.
Right.
Hilton is, again, coming off an injury, but
Right.
T.Y. Hilton.
I
Zach Pascal looked pretty good in T.Y. Hilton's absence, too. So
He definitely did. I like this offense. I don't love it, but I can see why they're at 15. Again, this is more of a speculation play, expecting Phillip Rivers to resurge back to his younger times because he's playing behind a better offensive line.
Yep. And if he doesn't, then this whole thing tanks back to the 20s, in my opinion.
And then they end up with a high pick.
Minnesota Vikings, I'd say yes, is better offense than the Lions.
Yes, they're
Number 14.
they're more consistent. They're more reliable. They've got great weapons in Thielen and Dalvin Cook. Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback. I like their offense a lot. I do.
This is one I don't know if I agree with the next one. But yeah, continue. Sorry.
They do take a bit of a step down with Stephon Diggs leaving, but either way, I think this offense is going to be just fine.
They did draft wide receiver in the first round,
They did.
I believe.
Yes, they did. If I remember right, they got
Justin Jefferson. There you
Justin
go.
Jefferson. Yep.
All right, so Philadelphia Eagles, number 13. This one is no I can see both arguments for on this one because, again, on paper, this team has weapons. They just haven't been able to really put them together, if you ask me. Miles Sanders, like they refuse to commit to a running back. Obviously, Zach Ertz is one of the best tight ends in the league, but they refuse to commit to running back. Carson Wentz, I don't even know what to think of him anymore, and it's a confusing offense to me.
Zach Ertz is still one of your premier tight ends.
Yeah,
Miles Sanders had over 1,300 total yards from scrimmage last year.
Mm-hmm. He did.
I think they're going to rely on him a lot more this season. I at least hope so, but they have always been kind of a running back by committee for a long time. However, I still think Miles Sanders is going to get the lion's share of that backfield snaps. Out wide, I mean, they've got Alshon Jeffrey. Didn't they draft somebody too?
They drafted Jalen Reagor at TCU. That's
right. Which, again, they desperately needed wide receiver help. I know, it was big. It was a big reason why they went that route in the draft. I still don't love their weapons, though. I like Miles Sanders. Alshon Jeffrey is very hit or miss, and he's getting older. And then Carson Wentz is a big question mark also. This is one that can be very high or very low.
The question is, do you like this offense more than the Lions, though?
I like the Lions' weapons better, but I think the Eagles' offense is a more well-oiled machine.
Interesting. Okay. Cleveland Browns, on paper, yes, definitely, 100%. And if they can put it together, I have no problem saying they're a better offense than the Lions.
If we're just strictly talking about this on paper, yes, the Browns' offense should be far higher than it is.
Yeah.
But that's just on paper. Obviously, we saw that last year where that team was terrible.
Baker Mayfield was nowhere near as good as he was as a rookie. Dude, people were so bought into this offense for fantasy purposes, I remember, and it just sank.
The only guy who was any good on that offense for fantasy purposes was Nick Chubb. That's it.
Yeah.
Nick Chubb was still very good.
Yeah. Oh, they did let Freddie Kitchens go.
Good choice.
Kevin Stefanski's now in charge there, so we'll see. Maybe he can work some magic. Houston Texans. This is an interesting one because obviously they lost DeAndre Hopkins.
Yep.
Will Fuller seems to not be able to stay healthy, but they did grab Brandon Cooks and they were able to grab David Johnson. So
they also signed Randall Cobb.
And obviously Deshaun Watson is a guy you got to watch out for, obviously.
They also signed Randall Cobb.
Yes.
That's another one. They still have Kenny Stills. So in terms of their receiving core, it doesn't look bad, if you ask me. Brandon Cooks, Will Fuller, Randall Cobb, Kenny Stills.
They're lacking some size. But so would you say this is a better offense than the Lions, though?
Yes.
I think going from here on, from 10 up, I think all these are you got Green Bay, Tennessee. I think Arizona. I think these are no longer.
I'll be honest with you. Green Bay's one I think is way overrated.
Really?
Yeah. Aaron Rodgers is good, but he's not the same quarterback that he once was, and their receiving core is fucking trash. Like I'm sorry, outside of Devontae Adams, outside of Devontae Adams,
Yeah.
What, Marquez Valdez-Scantling better than Marvin Jones?
No, I agree. The rest of receiving core is trash, but they do have a top 5 receiver, in my opinion. Devontae
Okay,
Adams.
and we've got Kenny Galladay. He's top 10.
And Aaron Jones has been a beast.
Aaron Jones is good, but they don't rely on him enough.
Mm.
He's not utilized enough. Let's be real. How good is the Packers offense in reality?
Would you drop the pack below the Lions?
I don't know why I'd drop them below the Lions, but I'd certainly drop them below probably the Texans. I'd probably drop them below. I think some of these are too high. I'd probably drop them below the Vikings.
Yeah. Mm.
I think Aaron Jones is every bit as good as Dalvin Cook.
Yeah.
Except Dalvin Cook is utilized more. I also like the backup running back in Minnesota a lot better. In Madison. I like the receiving core in Minnesota better. The total receiving core. I like the tight end in Minnesota better.
Oh, no, I agree. I think Minnesota is the best offense in our division.
I do too.
I agree with you 100%.
So I would absolutely drop this Packers offense back because, again, I don't think the Packers' weapons are there. I think they've got Aaron Jones and Devontae Adams and a bunch of dudes.
Yeah.
Are those weapons nice? Yeah, sure. Awesome. But there's 2 of them.
So you don't think Aaron Rodgers brings it back?
Aaron Rodgers is also like 37 years old. How much longer is he going to, quote unquote, bring it back?
He's like 34, isn't he?
No, he's like 37.
Oh, 36. Okay.
Yeah, he ain't young.
But
and he's also been hurt a lot lately.
So how far back are you dropping him to, like 17, 18? But you're not dropping both Lions, though.
I'd probably put him back towards 15.
Okay.
Again, some of these offenses are kind of hard to gauge because, like the Browns, for example, that's a tough one to gauge because on paper they should be in the top 5. The Eagles, that's one that on paper should be in the 20s, but the execution's always been there. It's so hard to gauge because with some of these offenses, like the Vikings are way too low in my mind, just on paper and through execution. The Colts is purely speculation on whether or not you think Phillip Rivers can come back. You know, there's a lot to look at here. I think the Bills are too high. The Falcons, I think, are a bit too high. The Raiders, I think, are intriguing. The Chargers are intriguing. The Lions are intriguing. The thing that really bothers me about where the Lions are is because the weapons are weapons that should be in the top 15. But the O-line, in my opinion, kind of really tanks them.
Yeah.
And I will say this article kind of plays on both sides of the coin here by relying by having entire offenses rely on guys that were injured constantly or injured and be the primary focal point. Look at the Bills offense, for example. Josh Allen and Devin Singletary, both guys that have shown an inability to stay fully healthy. Okay. Yeah. So why are you knocking the Lions for that same reason? You knocked them because Matthew Stafford got hurt last year. You knocked them because Kerryon Johnson can't stay healthy. Okay. So if you're not knocking one team for it, why are you knocking the Lions for it? I would take the weapons on the Lions over the Bills' weapons every damn day of the week.
But again, there are only a couple teams where I remember you saying that you would put them below the Lions. I think, if I'm understanding correctly, verdict is the Lions are slightly too low. They should be more like high teens in terms of like
I'd probably put
18.
them around 15 or 16, somewhere around that route. Like the Eagles one is honestly the hardest one for me because of the fact that on paper they're not a good offense. Miles Sanders is awesome. Carson Wentz, when healthy and playing his best, is awesome. Outside of that, what the hell do they got besides Zach Ertz? Zach Ertz is fantastic. But wide receiver wise, none of the receivers really strike me as top 15 guys or even top 20 guys. Alshon Jeffrey doesn't tickle my fancy. He doesn't. And they've got nothing else. So the Eagles offense doesn't really get me going. But they're also, and then the Browns offense on paper should be top, again, like I said, top 5. But where are they? But on paper means shit, obviously, because they were terrible last year. Nick Chubb was a fantastic running back regardless, but still, Baker Mayfield was garbage.
right, where do you think the Lions' offensive ceiling is then on this list? Do you think their ceiling is borderline top 10?
Yes, 100%. Their ceiling is top 10. If that offensive line is a step up from last season and Stafford stays healthy and you get something out of that backfield.
Turns out as expected. And
yes, if that
Hockenson takes a step up.
Weapon-wise, if things go as planned for this offense, the Lions will be in the top 10. Will finish in the top 10 of the league in scoring and yardage by the end of the year. If Stafford stays healthy, KG stays healthy, and Swift and carry on Kenny Galladay.
Kenny Galladay, okay, sorry. And as soon as I hear KG, I just immediately think Kevin Garnett, and then it just locks in.
And Swift and carry on are able to be an effective backfield, along with our offensive line being better than an upgrade from last year. Yes, this offense will be a top 10 offense, no question, because weapons-wise, they have top 10 weapons. They just got to execute.
All right, let's look at the defensive end of football then. So the Lions came out today and basically admitted they are not going to be renewing or picking up the fifth-year player option on Jarrad Davis's contract. Now, in my opinion, we're already pretty weak in the linebacking core, so I do think I see part of me thinks that I would want that security, but at the same time, I believe that this is actually could be a good move to actually kind of, light a fire under Jarrad Davis's ass, try to get him to play because now you're no longer guaranteed your fifth year. So I'm kind of torn on how I feel about this, but I am leaning towards this could do more good than bad.
I think this is something this was a move done with a couple things in mind. One of those is Jarrad Davis has really not been able to find a role on this defense. He's been an interior linebacker and plays and is in a position that you like. So when they drafted him and then drafted Jelani Tavai the next year, it was very confusing. And it's only
like 2 years after that, wasn't it?
It was a couple years after, sure. Yes, a couple years after. It's been nothing but confusing after the fact because those two guys cannot play on the field together. They play the exact same position and do the exact same things. So what this is doing, and because of that, this allows the Lions to either take your pick between the two and go with the younger, cheaper guy than re-signing Jarrad Davis for what would be an overinflated contract. If you'd end up saying that Jelani Tavai is the guy you're going with, because I really don't think one is all that much better than the other. Or two, it lights a fire underneath Jarrad Davis's ass, and you get a guy who's going to take the lead on the defense and be the guy you drafted him to be, and at that interior linebacker spot, and takes over the captain's type role on the defensive back on the defense, and you have a Jarrad Davis that you're then going to pay the money to and re-sign because he's worth it at that point.
Exactly. Like I don't like if I don't get like I value being able to pay a guy still like the rookie money for a fifth year. But if he's not earning it, they don't really care about it. So, like, it makes him. Yes, it could be more expensive, but if it's more expensive, it's a good thing because that means he's earned the contract.
Right. If he walks, guess what? We have his replacement already.
Yeah.
So it's not that big of a deal.
So I'm assuming you weren't at all surprised by this when it came out either.
Not at all. And I actually liked the move. It was a good move in my mind. I don't think that Jarrad Davis his play has really done anything to earn his fifth-year option. I think he's shown a couple flashes here and there, but I think he's
Bill is the next Ray Lewis in the draft.
I know, but I think he's in a spot where he is playing the same position as a guy who's younger and cheaper than him at this point moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, I think that linebacking core is something that still needs to be. Obviously, the defensive line needs to still be. The interior defensive line still needs to be addressed. But I think outside of that, the linebacking core is something I still want to see us focus on because last time we grabbed someone from New England that seemed good, aka Trey Flowers, he wasn't as effective when he came here, and so I'm a little wary of how Jamie Collins is going to perform. But
right, and I don't necessarily disagree with you. I think Jamie Collins is a guy who can be a fine player. I think we paid him way too much money. I think the linebacking core can be an upgrade this year. I am concerned about the interior defensive line. I'm interested to see what pans out and what we end up doing in the draft next year or in free agency next year, along with the pass rush. I like what we did, and I like the fact that we're bringing back Romeo Okwara. We have Julian Okwara. We have Trey Flowers. So we've got a few pieces there that I do like.
Yeah. Starting to like our pass rush.
Right, but I think we need to get more. You can never have too many pass rushers. And I said that on last week's episode.
Agreed.
I would have loved to see us do more.
Grab Bradley and I.
Right, exactly. I would have loved to see Bradley and I come here. So that's why I wanted the Lions to add onto their pass rush in the draft. And I'm telling you right now, if things go how I expect them to go this season, I expect the Lions to be looking pass rush, linebacker, and defensive line in next year's draft as three key needs in the defense. Because I'll be honest with you, I think our defensive backfield looks pretty damn solid right now.
Agreed. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, for real.
All right, let's transition over to some movie talk to close this out. So this was a little fun topic that was trending on Twitter the last couple days. And kind of fun taking on the show. So
you cut out there for a second. Repeat that. Sorry.
So this has been trending on Twitter for the last couple days. And I thought it'd be pretty fun to give our take on it on the podcast. So basically, they put out 9 comedies, and said if you can only keep 3 of these comedies, another 6 you can't watch again for the rest of your life. And so basically, what our taste in comedy is, because here are your 9 comedies: Superbad, Caddyshack, Anchorman, Bridesmaids, Step Brothers, Billy Madison, 40-Year-Old Virgin, 21 Jump Street, Coming to America. Fair warning, I have not seen Bridesmaids.
Okay.
And I haven't seen Caddyshack since I was younger. So
you poor bastard! Go watch that damn movie.
I do need some Rodney Dangerfield in my life, though, so I might need to go rewatch that.
You do. I will start things off by eliminating 3 right off the bat. I will eliminate Bridesmaids.
Okay.
It's a good movie. It's funny. It's just not for me. I'm a dude. It's just not for me.
I've never seen it, so I don't know.
21 Jump Street. I think it's actually a goddamn travesty that it's even in with this group. I don't think
it's that movie, but I also have it eliminated on my end too.
It's nowhere near up to snuff with the rest of these movies. I'm sorry. Nowhere near. And the other one I'm honestly going to eliminate is Coming to America.
Okay. I have those 2 eliminated.
That is a hot take, I know, because a lot of people love that movie. I like that movie a lot. It's not one of my favorite comedies. I'm sorry. It just isn't. So those are my 3 eliminations to start off.
My mother's favorite movie. How dare you?
So we have 6 movies left. We have to get down to 3. Are there any others you like right off the bat?
I know my 3, but I'll add on to eliminations to see if you're still in line with me here.
Okay.
As much as I love this movie, I'm eliminating Anchorman.
Oh God, I might pump the brakes on you for a minute, but continue.
Also, as much as I love this movie, and I think it's just, again, I don't have the same attachment to it because I haven't seen it in a minute, is Caddyshack.
You're an asshole. Do you take that back?
My other one is Step Brothers.
I'm going to disagree with you 100% on Caddyshack. I think that is one of the most iconic comedies of all time.
I agree 100%.
And I think any comedy list that doesn't have Caddyshack damn near the top is a lie.
It's just the premise of I can only keep 3 and can't watch R6 ever again. The fact that I haven't seen Caddyshack in so long, it won't affect me as much anymore because I'm like, I won't miss much.
I'll disagree with you on Caddyshack for sure, and I'm gonna disagree with you on Anchorman for a minute too. I'm gonna get rid of Billy Madison.
Which, well, you not know my 3 because of the 6.
Right. I get rid of Billy Madison. The reason is because if I had to pick comedies that I could only watch for the rest of my life, Billy Madison is one that the more I watch, albeit still funny, but it's not as funny as the first couple times I watched it. And it's the only one I can say that about of these remaining 6. So, and that's...
you could argue it suffers from being like overly quoted, and I think I've seen it more than I've seen any other movies on this list even.
I think the movie that's quoted the most for me that I've noticed on this list is Anchorman.
Anchorman?
Yes. That movie is probably quoted the most. So Billy Madison's quoted a ton. I just don't think it... There's certain parts that just aren't as funny to me as they used to be. Looking at me, Swan! There's just certain parts of this movie that aren't as funny to me as they used to be. I'm getting rid of Billy Madison as the one. And then I will also get rid of Step Brothers. I'll agree with you there.
I love that movie too. So.
I do too. It's fantastic, but again, it's one of those movies that as I've watched it more and more, it's not as funny as it used to be. And I'm kind of going with movies that are still as funny to me as they used to be. And then my third that I'm getting rid of is actually 40-Year-Old Virgin. I freaking love Steve Carell. He is probably my favorite. He's probably in my top 5 favorite actors, easily. Easily. But this movie is one that has its dry parts versus the rest of these I don't think do.
That's what I appreciate a little more about this movie is like it's got a little more range.
It does. It does. But if we're going comedies that I have to watch all the time for the rest of my life, it's Superbad, Caddyshack, and Anchorman. Those are the 3 that I would watch forever. And if I lost one of those 3, I would be so damn disappointed. I went back and forth between Anchorman and 40-Year-Old Virgin a lot. Billy Madison was my first cut in the second round. Step Brothers was my second cut in the second round, and then 40-Year-Old Virgin ended up being my third. I went back and forth between Anchorman and 40-Year-Old Virgin a lot. But I ended up sticking with Anchorman. But 40-Year-Old Virgin, honest to God, I could replace it right now and still be not disappointed with my picks. But the 2 I had to keep in from the very beginning were Superbad and Caddyshack. Because those 2 I think will go down. One already has gone down as one of the greatest comedies of all time. And the other one I think will eventually end up going down as one of the greatest comedies of all time. Yeah. Superbad.
And I'm sure, because for me it's Superbad, 40-Year-Old Virgin, Billy Madison. But I'm sure, and I'm probably going to be rewatching Caddyshack this week. I'm sure that it will overtake probably Billy Madison to get into my top 3 from this specific list.
It should if you have any culture.
I rewatched a couple Monty Pythons last week. I did those
are fantastic.
And Holy Grail.
Those are fantastic. Highly, if you haven't seen any of the Monty Python movies, highly recommend. Those are good.
Yeah, they're great. They are great.
'Tis only a flesh wound.
I just watched that the other day. Oh, it's so funny.
Oh man.
But yeah, it was a little fun movie talk to close out the show.
We may have to do more movie talk on this show as things go by, just because of the lack of sports. I know there's the rumors that sports are trying to start back up, but who knows if that's actually going to happen.
By the way, did you get to watch the 04 Pistons on win the NBA Finals last week?
I did, actually. I got to sit down. Girlfriend was still at work, so I got to take advantage of me sitting down with her dog and watching our 04 team go back at it. I miss that damn team.
I threw on my piss. I have the championship shirt. I have the hat. Like, I threw it all on. I was ready.
I'll be honest with you. I was quite a bit let down that they didn't show the intros. Because if there's one thing that gets me,
trophy ceremony.
They did, but honestly, I would have rather watched the intros than the trophy ceremony. If there's one thing that just gets me and just gives me chills when I watch anything with that team, it's the intros they had, because they just basked in the limelight. Like, you had Ben bouncing around, Rasheed dancing around, ripping Chauncey total business, Tayshaun being himself. The intros of that team were better than anybody's.
And oh my God, watching Darko check in, just seeing how bad he was.
You know what? And
the whole time he was in.
I actually texted you this during the pregame warm up. If you actually watch, Darko was legit warming up like he was actually going to get in and play meaningful minutes, and I just started laughing when I saw it, because I'm like, that's a joke.
But dude, like watching that scene again of like Chauncey and Rip hugging, like as the clock's starting to wind down, they realize they have this one, and like I want that feeling again in Detroit. Like I don't know when we're ever gonna get it again, but
I'm so championship starved, you have no idea, and we're so far away. All of our teams are so far away. Tigers suck, Pistons suck, Wings suck. The Wings may get the number 1 pick, and I hope they do, and maybe we'll start seeing a turnaround, but there's still holes in that team. The Tigers, ugh. And the Lions are just never going to win a title. I've given up on that. So,
dude, it's a bucket list. It's on the bucket list of mine to go watch one of our teams win a title at home.
Oh, 100% agree.
Be there live for it.
God, I hope we're not 80 when it happens next.
I want to still be able to jump. Let's put it that
Right. Oh man. I want to still. How about this? I want to still enjoy being drunk.
way. There you go.
Oh man.
All right, that's all I got for today.
That's all I got. Also, we hope that the Lions' offense shows up better than what the Bleacher Report experts. And now, mind you, it is Bleacher Report, so take it with a grain of salt. They're terrible. I've never, and Andrew knows very well, I'm not a big fan of Bleacher Report. I think their analysis articles are garbage. So I think they were kind of all over the place, but I hope that the Lions are better than 20th in the league in the offense. So, and I expect them to be. I do. But we hope you're all staying healthy and happy and treading carefully as things begin to reopen in our state. And we hope for reopening of the sports to come soon, but not too soon. We want it to be safe. And if you're going out and enjoying the outdoor weather, because it's been absolutely gorgeous the last couple of days and it's supposed to be again tomorrow, we hope you're having a good time and enjoying it.
I went on a good 2-hour bike ride, so that was fun.
Nice. So, but anyways, guys, thank you again for listening. Follow us on Twitter at Real Fan Report. We hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode, and we'll catch you guys next week. Andrew, thank you for joining me. This has been the Fan Reporters by fans.
Or fans.
We'll catch you guys next week. Have a good one. Peace out.
Peace.